Okay? So you don't have to worry about whether the nations are fulfilling the standard of God, because there are always some who are calling on the name of the Lord. In every nation, in every tribe, there are people who are walking with God. Okay? And there are others who don't. So God will sort this out. Don't worry about it. So God has created all nations for a purpose. And those who fulfill their purpose, they will be sorted out. They will be utilized by God himself. Now, every nation is gifted in a unique divine way, with a unique decree upon our lives. Just like individuals are gifted in different ways, so are the nations as well. Okay, and I think that's very important for us to recognize. Okay, I'm sure if you look at your friend or your friends, you will see that they're not exactly like you are. And sometimes that creates problems, because we become, we have an inferior complex because maybe they have something which seems to be better than ourselves. But you must not just look at one thing. You must look at the whole creature, who you are. Okay? And every one of us is uniquely formed by God to fulfill a certain purpose. So if somebody else is different than you, don't feel inferior, but understand who you are in God. Okay? And every one of us is important. Everyone has to fulfill their role and their calling in God. There is no one who is inferior. It's very sad that people are fighting over these issues, even go to war over such issues. But the reality is that God has created us according to his divine plan, his divine decree. Our destiny determines which kind of gift and equipment we receive. Okay? That's very, very easy to understand. Last week, we talked about the craftsman. Okay, we saw that God gave a plan to Moses how to build the tabernacle in the wilderness, in the desert. Okay, and the plan was so magnificent, so powerful, that Moses was, just not having an idea how to bring this whole tabernacle into being. I mean, despite the fact that Moses had a lot of experience, had a lot of gifts, had a lot of learning from the time he was in Egypt, and also, of course, eventually when he was taught by God in the wilderness through taking care of his father-in-law's flock. Nevertheless, Moses couldn't have the skills that were required to do certain things. But God told him very clearly, I have already called and equipped people like Bezalel. Okay? And there are others. You can read this in the book of Exodus chapter 31. God said, I have already gifted those men to be able to bring about these kind of things that I have given you instructions to create. Okay? So the destiny, the plan of God determines what kind of gifts you must have. Of course, Moses could not create those crafts that Bezalel could create. But Moses himself was a leader. Without that, the nation of Israel could not have reached anywhere. So everyone has their skill. Everybody has their ability. Everybody is gifted in a certain way. I was just mentioning a choir. In a choir, you have 4 different types of voices. Bass, tenor, alto, and soprano. Okay, and the 4 different types of voices, they give a wonderful tune, isn't it? But even within the sopranos, there are different voices, and they make the sound much more full. Okay, imagine just one voice would be there, even if you're 100 people, but all of you sing one voice in whatever pitch. It would be very, very thin, very boring to listen to, because individual performer, they're always backing vocals to make the sound full. And the backing vocals sometimes you don't see, but they are making the sound to be what it is. So even if you're a backing vocal, don't feel inferior, because your sound, your voice is very important. Every one of us is important. Just tell your neighbor, hey, just tell your neighbor,